Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated January 9th, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles as usual. And these are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So let's start with the first important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about foreign universities setting up their campuses in India because now India has come up, or UGC has come up with a policy that it will now allow the foreign universities to come to India. Now they can set up their own campuses, and that is why this particular article becomes important for the GS paper 2, that is government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation, right? So let's first understand the context of this particular newspaper article, then we will understand what are the proposals of the UGC, and then we will talk about the fact what the foreign players have to say regarding it and how this particular policy or this particular proposal by the UGC aligns with the national education policy. So let's first start with the context. Now this particular article says that foreign universities and educational institutions could soon be allowed to set up campuses in India as per the draft regulations made public by the University Grants Commission. Now the University Grants Commission, that is UGC, has come up with the draft regulation. Now these draft regulation at this particular point of time have been put up in the public sphere for the scrutiny, and whatever the criticism of it is there, then these problems are going to be solved. Now this particular proposals are basically six in number. First one is it talks about the colleges which are allowed. So the colleges which are allowed, or the foreign universities which are allowed, should be among the top 500 global rankings, or they must be foreign educational institution of repute in its home jurisdiction, and these are the universities that will be applicable for applying to the UGC campuses to set up their campuses in India as per the UGC. And when we talk about the admission process, then their admission process will be different from the admission process which is happening right now in India. So these campuses can evolve their own admission process and criteria to admit domestic and foreign students. And if we talk about the fee structure, then they will have the autonomy to set up their own free fee structure, and they will face no caps that are imposed on the Indian institution. In the Indian institution, a certain amount of cap is imposed that you cannot charge more than that amount. Now they will be allowed, these foreign universities which will set up campuses in India, they will be allowed to impose as much fees as they can, and the fees however should be reasonable and transparent. And if we talk about the staffing, then it will have the autonomy to recruit faculty and staff from India and abroad. And talking about the courses which are not allowed, now these particular courses should not jeopardize the national interest of India or the standards of higher education in India. Otherwise it is fine, you can allow any of the courses, you can take up any of the courses. Now this particular institutions can also receive foreign fundings because they are basically from the abroad, then they can also get funding from the abroad. So cross border funding or cross border movement of the funds will be allowed as per the UGC proposals. Now there are certain problems or the certain things that the foreign players have to say regarding it. So the foreign institution says that it is not very clear whether these foreign faculties will be from, where will be from. They will they be hired from the same university, they will come up from the same university, same parent university, or they will be hired subsequently by from the other places as well. And the second thing apart from it is the infrastructure, because they believe that India does not have a very good infrastructure. So while India wants to become a global destination for the higher education, what about the infrastructure needed to support that ambition? Now that becomes a big problem because foreign institutes required, or these institutions require a large campuses, and they need some kind of rebate in it and as well, and that is why this becomes a problem. The second problem is that of infrastructure. The third problem becomes that Indians aspire to go to the abroad, not just because of the education, but because Indian students are looking for the freedom and all of these things. So these students are nonetheless going to go to the foreign universities. So what is the sense of making the foreign universities in India, right? And what kind of students will these foreign universities cater to? That is the question which has been raised by the foreign players. So these are the three questions that have been raised by the foreign players. First one is the staffing, second one is the infrastructure, third one is whom does these universities cater to? Now these questions if answered, then this particular UGC proposals become very, very effective, right? And now the question arises, what about the national education policy? Does this particular UGC proposal align with the national education policy? Well, yes, in some way or the other. Now, national education policy says that top 100 universities in the world will be facilitated to operate in India through a legislative framework. And the national education policy also proposes attracting the top 100 universities, while the UGC draft permits universities with top 500 rankings. Now UGC draft permits universities with top 500 rankings, and the national education policy talks about legislative framework for top 100 universities. Now this is somewhat in the alignment, right? Now the objective in promoting India as a global education destination is apparently aimed at saving the loss of foreign exchange. That becomes a problem because nearly 13 lakh students were studying abroad in 2022, and as per the RBI, $5 billion rupees was lost in foreign exchange due to students going abroad in financial year 21 to 2022. Now 5 billion rupees is a very big sum, right? And this becomes a grave problem because we are giving away our money. The problem of foreign exchange is there, and that is why the aim of the national education policy and the UGC proposal is such that it will promote India as a global education destination. Now the larger goal of the national education policy is to take the gross enrollment ratio in colleges and universities to 50% by 2035 from current 27%. But mind it, foreign institutions can charge a hefty amount of money. They will charge a large sum of money. And who are going to afford this particular money, this particular kind of money, this kind of insane money? These are the people from the upper and the middle classes. Now but online education, now these particular private institutions will only benefit those from the upper and the middle class, and it will not align with the national education policy's goal of increasing the gross enrollment ratio in the colleges, because these universities are not going to cater to the people from the poor background. Now that becomes a big and a significant problem, and this problem needs to be answered with other proposals by the UGC. That is what our recommendation is, right? Now this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. We have talked about the proposals by the UGC. We have talked about what foreign players have to say regarding it, and and how does it align with the national education policy, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article talks about a town which is Joshimath in the Uttarakhand state, right? And this particular article talks about how the land is sinking in that particular area or that particular town, right? Now this particular article becomes important for the GS paper 2, paper 3, that is conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, because in degradation in the environment is happening, and that is why this particular article becomes important for the GS paper 3. Now this particular article talks about the fact that residents of hill town of Joshimath called for a bandh on Thursday, that is January 5th, 2022, and the locals chanted slogans against the administration and staged a chakka jam while businesses remain shut down. Now this kind of problem arose due to one factor. The factor is that the Joshimath is sinking. Over 500 homes in the region have developed cracks. Now the cracks are like this, right? These are big significant cracks. Now locals have been forced to find support structures to keep their homes from falling under their own weight, and already 50 families have been shifted to safer location, and Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami has ordered immediate evacuation of 600 families from the region. Now, what is the reason behind the Joshimath sinking? What is the reason? What is the main reason behind it? So basically, the Joshimath is located at a height of 6,000 feet in Uttarakhand's Chamoli district, and it is a well-known tourist town because travelers heading to the Badrinath, Hemkund Sahib, Oli and Valley of the Flowers, among other religious and trekking destinations, halt here overnight before traveling ahead, and it is also strategic importance. It also is of strategic importance to the Indian Army, right? To this end, in the past few decades, the hill town has seen an explosion of population and construction activities, mainly because there is work in the Joshimath, and in the adjoining villages, villagers all come to the Joshimath in order to search for the better opportunities, right? But this population explosion has resulted in many of the problems as well. So what aligns with it, or the what makes it the major problem is that the Joshimath, or this particular town, is its a geography. It was built on ancient landslide site and has always been low bearing capacity, and hydroelectric power projects and the expansion of the Rishikesh Badrinath National Highway 7 has made the slopes unsteady and soil erosion due to running streams from the Vishnu Prayag and the sliding along the natural streams have also had a role to play in the sealing the town's fate. Now this particular problem leads to what is called sinking of the town. But why has authorities or the people do not have not done anything regarding it? So experts have warned for decades now that area cannot handle the rampant construction that has been going on, and the first such report came out in 1976. Now this particular report indicated that an imbalance at Joshimath could threaten life and property, and the report by the government appointed Mishra Commission was also the first to give out crucial piece of information that Joshimath was located on an ancient landslide. When you are located on an ancient landslide, then the problems of the sinking are going to happen, and thus built on an environmentally fragile area. Now it also falls in a high seismic zone, that is zone 5, which means it was more prone to earthquakes and the ensuing landslides. And apart from it, a 2006 report by Dr. Swapnamit, who is a scientist at Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology in Dehradun, revealed that seepage from the streams uphill have been absorbed, which maybe have loosened the soil of the Joshimath. And the local residents, on the other hand, add that nalas in the town have been blocked by sludge that came from 2013 Himalayan tsunami, and they also say that the Vishnu Prayag or Vishnu Ghat project is also responsible for this particular incidents or these kinds of incidents. Now the question is whether this particular incident has some larger environmental impact. So there have been spurt in the unusual weather events in the Uttarakhand Himalayas, increased frequency and magnitude of the forest fires, avalanches, flash floods and landslide. This leads to the understanding that something larger is happening. So as the climate continues to warm, receding glaciers in the Uttarakhand Himalayas have left behind enormous sediments in areas above 2,500 meters, and they have the potential to cause catastrophic floods under unusual weather events. And apart from it, the valleys here are also clogged with large quantities of loose sediments, making them fragile and unstable. And it's why the most destructive floods in the region have been triggering from these valleys. And apart from it, the whole valley is vulnerable due to the presence of weak rocks and seismic activity, and the landslides can obstruct rivers at any time and cause flash floods like the 1978 Bhagirathi floods. And adding to it, no long-term environmental conservation strategy and haphazard development to the mix, and you have the recipe for a disaster. So there is no long-term planning regarding this particular area. That becomes a big problem, right? And this leads to various kinds of problems as we have seen in the Joshimath region, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. So what can be the way forward in this regard? Let's discuss it, then we will end this particular video. So that experts are recommending a complete shutdown of the development and the hydroelectric projects in the region, and the replantation, especially at the vulnerable sites, to the retain soil capacity. And apart from it, they are also asking that residents of the Joshimath be shifted to safer locations immediately. And the central government has already set up panel to conduct a rapid study of the occurrence of the land subsidence and its impact on Joshimath, and also covered will be the effects of the sinking of land on human settlements, buildings, highways, infrastructure, and riverine systems. So these are basically the steps taken by the experts as well as the central government. So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article, and this is it for the video. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.